Hey guys, my name is Oscar and welcome to how I take notes during a lecture versus how I create my revision notes. Now these to me are very different and they're done in completely different ways, so keep tuned to see how I do it. Well, the very first thing that I do before a lecture is to preview my lecture notes. This means going through the lecture slides and searching up anything that I don't understand, and this just speeds up my note-taking process during a lecture as I can then focus on any extra material the lecturer is saying rather than trying to understand everything at once. I find this really helpful, especially for science degrees, which I am in. As majority of the time they're very fast paced. When taking notes during lectures, it can be pretty difficult to kind of keep up with the lecturer because they often tend to go pretty fast. And this is where I use a mixture of typed notes using Notion, handwritten notes, both digitally on an iPad or a graphics tablet, and also old-fashioned pen and paper. These notes are usually just scribbles, to be honest, that only I can really make out. Majority of the time, my lecturers give PowerPoints beforehand, and I download these slides and upload them to GoodNotes and annotate the PowerPoint. Just highlighting specific things the lecturer said and writing down any extra information, or if there is an exam soon, writing down any tips or tricks the lecturer might hint at, which they do sometimes. These are just very basic notes and usually a lot of scribbles and a lot of shorthand. Nothing really special really. If you're using a graphics tablet, which I used for my whole first semester, it's pretty much the same as writing on an iPad, but it just takes a little bit more time to get used to. Now moving on to revision notes. These are usually done in the same day or the day after, but never more than one day after the lecture, just because I will forget everything. And this is a two-step process for me. This is where the fun comes in, the aesthetics, if you will. But bear in mind, my notes are not aesthetic like some people's notes, but at least they're not scribbles, you know? Before writing these notes, I spend time going through my PowerPoints and my slides and my handwritten notes, and then after I've gone through them, we'll write my revision notes. I write these revision notes without any help from the PowerPoint or the slides or my notes, just trying to get as much out from my memory as I possibly can. I take my time doing this as well. It's gonna take up anywhere between 1 and 3 hours per lecture. 1 hour being the kind of okay, easy topics, and up to 3 hours if the topic is really difficult. And if it is really difficult, what I do is write subheaders for myself. So like in massive topics such as, I don't know, like metabolism, there's always going to be subtopics branching off from the main area. Things such as like different respirations, like anaerobic respiration, the three metabolic processes, so the glycolysis, the cell or Krebs cycle, and electron transport chain, or chemiosmosis. There's just so much. Or take the cardiovascular system. There's always little sections like the heart, the lungs, the vessels. There's just so much content in some lectures. I'll write these subheadings down on a sheet of paper next to me and use these as little aids to kind of cheat my way through writing these notes. Having little aids can help your memory to kind of remember more, so you can write more out. I try to make these notes look good, but really I don't care who has time for that, to be honest, like, especially because there's just so much to get through. I don't have time to make them look aesthetic and pleasing. I try to make them neat and legible, but I don't have time for the aesthetics. Once I've written as much as I can remember, I then go through the PowerPoint again and write anything that I've forgotten or draw in any extra diagrams that I may have forgotten. And I also write questions and I answer these questions on the bottom of the sheets, and it's the start of my active recall section. Now moving on to the second part of my revision note taking, this is the active recall section. I'm sure you've all heard of that phrase before. It's basically like a studying technique that actually simulates like the memory in certain parts of the brain rather than like passive learning. What I do is I take my Notion app or OneNote, usually Notion because there's all those extra features that you can use. I basically just write questions using questions from my lecturers. A lot of the time they might give revision sheets, so using those questions. I'm just making questions up from the old marking schemes and from the top of my head, which I think are going to be important. Once I've built up a bunch of these questions, I can then go back and add more if I need to, or I can use these as a study aid when the exams are coming up. This really is only the basics and just grazes the surface of how I really create these notes, but if you want a more detailed video on a certain specific area, let me know down below and I will be happy to make it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this really quick video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.